Hi, and welcome to the 8 advantages of using a vendor comparison chart, or how adding one single document to your sales pitch can double your sales. I created this document many years ago during my first business, and I did it out of complete frustration with the sales process that I was following at the time. My frustration was that I was spending a lot of time, effort, and money into very thought out, well-detailed proposals, only to get the no answer very quickly, very briefly, saying, sorry, we went with somebody else. And some of the objections sometimes would be price, sometimes other reasons. But what really was frustrating for me was when I knew who they were going with. And I knew that we actually could offer a better solution for that prospect. That was really the frustrating part. We all know we're not going to win every single proposal. That's okay. But what really burns is when you know that it wasn't an even playing field, that the prospect did not make an apples to apples comparison between all the vendors. That's when it hurts. That's why I developed this tool. So if you're frustrated with the same thing, if you're spending a lot of time doing that, and then getting a no and thinking to yourself, how can that be? Did you not read what I presented? Did you not ask this question or the other? Did you not check references? Why did you not do your due diligence? Then this is for you. I'm going to walk you through how doing one document, creating one document, is going to help you turn this around. Now, this came to me because I started to realize that I really should not be blaming the prospect, and neither should you. Really, it's not their fault most of the time. Think about it. They're coming to us as experts because they don't know what they're getting into. That's why they need our help and they need our advice. A lot of the time, they don't know what questions to ask. Or maybe they do know the questions, but they don't know what the right answer is, or they don't know how important one factor may be over another. So it's really on us to educate prospects so that everybody can win. We win because we stop losing clients to other vendors that are not as qualified as we are to give those people a solution. And the prospects win because they end up with the right fit for what they want. And if that's us, wonderful. But if it isn't, that's okay too. The whole point is to even the playing field so we can have apples to apples. When it's fair, and we're all happy. So that's the purpose of this document. Let me show you what it looks like. Now, the vendor comparison chart, like its name says, it's a very simple chart that the prospect is going to use to compare 3 different vendors. Why 3? Because it seems to be the magical number. Everybody seems to ask for 3 proposals or for 3 bids. So let's accept that and give them the room to have that information. Now, the critical piece of this chart is the criteria, the questions that you are telling the prospect that they should be asking, the criteria that they should be considering when looking at different vendors. This is your opportunity. Every time in the past when you've thought about, oh my God, if they had only asked this question to that competitor, or had I only shared this piece of information, things would have been different. Well, here you go. This is your chance to put all of that together in one place. And what you're going to get is 2 things. You're going to educate your prospects so that they can make that apples to apples comparison. And second, without even saying a word, you are going to be telling them already how you measure up to that criteria. So now that you know what this looks like, let's talk a little bit about timing and how to use it. When it comes to timing, my simple suggestion is use it as quickly as you can. You want to get in there before they're too far in their decision-making process. And even if you happen to be the last vendor they're going to talk to, at least do it at the very beginning of your presentation. This is going to put you in a more proactive perspective. It's going to bring a more proactive approach rather than a reactive one. If you're only showing this information as a reaction, meaning that somebody has your proposal and then they call you and they say something like, you know, your proposal sounds good, but this other vendor is offering me a warranty that I never saw in your paperwork. And only then are you saying something like, oh yeah, well, we can do that too, or we offer that too. It's not going to sound as good. It's not going to sound as credible. is going to start creating some doubt for the prospect. They're going to start thinking, really? Was he really going to do that? Is it really included? What else is really not being shown here? You want to avoid that. So if you're the one who brings all of those things up front very quickly, you're going to be proactive and not reactive, and you're going to keep your credibility. Now, how you're going to use it is also important. You want to come from an educational point of view. So instead of making the mistake of trashing your competitors when you're talking to people, or bragging so much about your own company that you start sounding like that pushy salesperson that nobody likes, if instead you say something like this, how would it sound like? Okay, here's the example. You're talking to your prospect and you say, I know that you're going to be looking at different vendors, and in fact, I suggest that you do that. Now, here's a document that we have put together to help people in your position get informed and ask the right questions so that when you're talking to vendors, you can really make the best decision for yourself. Would you like to spend 10 or 15 minutes going through these factors with me? How does that sound? How much better? Right? So that's the approach that you want to take, that you're here to help them. They're not even your client yet, and you're offering to help them in their decision-making process in a very objective way. So now that you know what it is and you know what it looks like and how and when to use it, let's jump into those 8 advantages that I mentioned. Now, the number 8 is because those are the ones that I have identified in my own use of the vendor comparison chart. Who knows? You may find even more. Make sure that if you do that, you share that with us. So let's start. Advantage number 1 is what I call the reality check. Okay. Now, what this is it addresses the fact that in creating this document, you are going to be forced to think of your company in a slightly different way. In my experience coaching, most business owners focus on what needs to be improved. They're constantly thinking about what can be better, faster, higher quality. And they're hardly ever stopping and listing, these are all of our strengths. Well, this is your chance. Sit down, think about if you were in the prospect's shoes and you had to make the decision, what is the information that you would want to know so that you make the best decision that you can? That's the criteria that you want to be coming up with. The reality check is on the column that you're going to fill out for yourself. How do you really measure up to this criteria? Are you as good as you think? Now, if you are, fantastic, move on. If you're not so much or you want to improve it, this is great. This is one of the purposes of this document. It'll give you the opportunity to make that decision and say, well, maybe we need to be a little bit stronger in these areas so we can compete better against our competitors. So the reality check is number 1. The second advantage is that this document is going to help you be a much better presenter when you are doing your sales pitch. It's going to improve your sales presentation. Now, why do I say that? The number 1 reason that sales presentations sometimes get a little bit shaky is exactly the first point that I made. Most of us are not very comfortable talking a lot about our values. Why? Because we're afraid that we're going to come off like those sales people that we don't like, that are kind of pushing all of this stuff, all of this information at us and saying how much greater than everybody else they are. Now, when we have that fear, we tend to go in the opposite direction. And yes, we know how to talk about benefits and features of our products and services, but we don't really talk about value per se and why it's so important. Doing this document, because now you're going to have gone through the exercise of thinking it through and writing it out, is going to make you a better communicator of value. You're going to know the right words, you're going to practice, and it's going to come off much more smoothly. Now, the third advantage is that with these first 2 comes the fact that you're going to start increasing your own credibility in front of prospects. Think about it. You are the one who's taking the time to walk them through this process and to help them. And you're doing it from an educational perspective. So your credibility is going to start going up. And you're going to they're going to see you as the expert in your field, as the person to come to when they have these questions, because you're the one who is educating them in all of the important factors that they need to consider. all of this is also inspiring more and more trust. And trust is key. People are going to buy from people that they like and trust. So if you start building trust from the very beginning, you're going to have a huge advantage over other vendors. And again, think about it. Who do we trust? We trust those people that we actually can sense that they genuinely want to help us. So if you're the one taking that time and you're doing it in a very no strings attached mode, you know, like it doesn't matter if you pick me, I want you to make the right decision. And here's the factors that you need to consider. Trust is going to start happening, right? And that's going to only make the process more towards your favor, because they're going to start asking you more detailed questions. You're going to become their go-to person. They're going to start forming that relationship with you rather than with the other vendors that they're looking at. Having said that, here comes advantage number 5. What that is that now you have become the standard that they measure other vendors against. You're the one who brought up this criteria. You're the one who provided this information first. So whoever they're talking to, they're going to go back to your list. They're going to go back to your document. And you're going to be that standard. You're going to be that compass that's going to guide them. So this is going to keep you top of mind, even if you were the last one that they talked to. It's going to make them pause and think back and go, should we get more information from those other vendors that we were so sure before, but now we're not so sure because nobody gave us this information, right? So it's going to help you with that. Now, the next advantage, advantage number 6, is that I've also seen this document help you with the speed of the decision making, right? Sometimes prospects can take forever to make the decision. Why? Again, they're scared to make the wrong one. So they keep asking questions, they keep asking opinions, and they're not moving along. Now, with the vendor comparison chart, what happens is they become more educated. So everything goes faster. I have seen in one extreme, people actually lose the need to talk to other vendors completely. And they say something like, you know what? I think this is all the information that we need. Let's get started right away. Now, if that doesn't happen and they still compare, you're still going to shrink the process because they're going to be better educated. So they're going to also be quicker at judging or evaluating other vendors. They're going to be quicker in asking the right questions and evaluating and moving on. So overall, it's going to make things happen faster, which is also very helpful for us in sales. Now, my favorite advantage is advantage number 7. And that is that using the vendor comparison chart takes you away from fighting the price war. That is a situation that you never want to be in, especially when you know that you are never going to be the lowest priced option for your prospects. Fighting that fight war just becomes a nasty thing. It is what it gives sales sometimes a bad reputation. That's where that whole idea of the pushy salesperson comes in. Now, how does it do that? Because again, without having to say a word, you have actually shown all of the value that you bring to the table to your prospects. And even better yet, they have connected all the dots by themselves. So from where they stand, they not only see the value, they have experienced the value by having this conversation with you. You have been creating this relationship and going over this document. So you're no longer going to have to prove that you bring more to the table than the next person who has a lower price. They're going to see that on their own. And even though everybody at the end of the day is always going to consider price, what this is going to help is that price is not going to be the only factor or even the most important factor. And that's a great advantage to you. Now, finally, advantage number 8, it's something that I didn't even expect when I created this document. And that is that it can also increase the referrals that you get. Now, how can it do that? If you spend a little bit of time, and I want to show you an example of how I did mine, you can see it on the screen. But if you spend a little bit of time in laying it out in a nice way and branding it properly, it becomes a marketing tool. Something that happened to me that was unexpected, I had someone who had already become a client and had used the vendor comparison chart call me and say, hey, would you mind sending me a blank one of those? And I was curious. I'm thinking, well, you already made the decision. Why do you need one of those? And they told me that it was because a friend of theirs was about to make the same decision. And they wanted to be as helpful to them as I had been with them. So that was fantastic feedback on how well received this document can be. So spend a little bit of time of having it look good so that can people pass it along. It's even going to become a conversation topic. People are going to say something like, you know, I was impressed with this vendor. We had not made the decision yet, and they're the only ones who took the time to help us in this process. They even gave us a document that we could use to make things easier. People are going to be talking about it. Your name is going to be going around, and people might even be sharing this document and calling you out of the blue. So let's recap how this document really helps you. In one word, it builds trust. You are basically coming in from a very genuine approach. And you're telling people, hey, I know you have a tough decision to make. And I want to be a solution for you if I'm indeed the best solution for you. So let's have the conversation and figure that out. And here's a tool to help you do that, because you may not know how to make this decision. You may not know the right questions to ask. So when you come from that perspective, the trust is there. It's a win-win situation. You stop losing clients because of lack of communication or misunderstandings or just lack of knowledge on their part, and they get the best solution for their needs. And that's what we want, a complete win-win. So if you're intrigued by how this document can help you increase your sales, I encourage you to visit our website. You will see that in this page, the vendor comparison chart is one of the 3 completely free tools that we offer. So yes, you can get this completely free. Now, what is it that you get? You're going to get 3 components to this tool. First, you're going to get a brief guide. It's going to cover a lot of the things that I already mentioned in this video, plus more. So it's going to give you more details on how to create your own step-by-step, a lot of information about how it's going to work, the timing, even what to say, word by word. Second, it's going to give you a template. So this doesn't have to be hard. You can download our template. It's already the chart that I showed you in this video, and all you have to do is put the name of your company, choose your criteria, and start, and you can start using this chart tomorrow if you wanted to. And then finally, the third part is we're going to give you an example of a filled-in chart. That way you can see how you can customize it to yourself. I always find that an example is very useful when I'm trying to take something that's a little bit more generic and trying to make it my own. So don't waste this opportunity to get your vendor comparison chart completely for free. Go ahead and use it and let us know how your sales are improving.